think she left you because you failed her. No, she left you because you became predictable. You believed that if you were loyal enough, soft enough, open enough, she would love you forever. You thought love was a contract. You were wrong. Love is a game of gravity, not morality. And here's the truth. Nietzsche never sugar-coated women crave mystery more than loyalty. Not because they are cruel, not because they are broken, but because they are human. And humans don't desire what they fully possess. They desire what eludes them. You were always there, always available, always responding. You thought your consistency was strength, but to her it was transparency. And transparency is the slow death of attraction. She stopped wondering about you. And when the wondering ends, so does the wanting. Nietzsche once wrote, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. But I will destroy yours anyway, because no one else will." She didn't fall in love with your kindness. She fell in love with the parts of you she couldn't quite read. She didn't walk away because you were unfaithful. She walked away because you became easy to explain. Loyalty becomes useless when it turns into certainty. And certainty kills curiosity. Without curiosity, the dance is over. You gave her everything, your time, your attention, your soul. But here's the paradox. The more she could predict your every move, the less she could feel her own desire. This isn't a personal flaw. It's a universal law. It's not about good or bad. It's about energy. The tension between presence and distance. Between being known and remaining mysterious. You didn't fail because you weren't enough. You failed because you showed too much. You thought love required transparency, but she wanted shadow. You thought love meant explaining yourself, but she craved the thrill of the unexplained. You thought love was earned through obedience, but she wanted challenge, not comfort. She didn't want to own you. She wanted to chase you, and the second you stopped running, you ceased to be the man she desired. That's not manipulation, that's biology. That's Nietzsche's truth. The demand to be loved is the greatest of all arrogant presumptions. You believed she owed you her loyalty because you gave her yours. But love is not debt. It's tension. She doesn't need your devotion. She needs your depth. And if that depth becomes a shallow pool of repetition and routine, she will walk away. Not loudly, not cruelly, but silently. Because mystery faded. And without mystery, you were no longer worth wondering about. This is the betrayal no one talks about. The betrayal of becoming too loyal, too stable, too known. And it always ends the same way. She leaves. You don't understand why, but now you will. You were told loyalty is love. You were taught that if you stay, if you support her, if you never look at another woman, she will stay too. But here's the first rule no one wants to admit. Loyalty kills desire. Not because loyalty is wrong, but because it's boring. You see, desire doesn't live in safety. It lives in the unknown. Desire isn't born from comfort. It's born from tension, the kind of tension that makes her wonder, where is he? What is he thinking? Does he still choose me, or has he already left in his mind? When you remove that tension, you also remove the fuel that feeds her craving for you. Nietzsche understood this well. He said, "In every real man, a child is hidden that wants to play. And play, my friend, requires risk, not certainty." But you weren't playing, you were proving. You thought if you showed her that you were the good man, the available man, she would reward you with love, loyalty, and permanence. Instead, she rewarded you with distance, detachment, disinterest. Because loyalty, when too obvious, becomes servitude. You stopped being her mystery, you became her possession. And no woman desires what she fully owns. You want to know why she was obsessed with the man who didn't text back? Because he wasn't hers. Because every moment he wasn't responding, he was building tension, not just in her mind, but in her body. You can moralize it. You can call him toxic. You can call yourself better. But it doesn't change the truth. She was drawn to him because he didn't give her certainty. He gave her unpredictability. He gave her contrast. He made her feel like she could lose him at any moment. And that made her fight to keep him. You never had to be chased. You were there, always, forever. But forever isn't seductive. It's suffocating. Loyalty is only sexy when it's chosen in the face of options, not when it's handed out like a participation trophy. You made yourself loyal by default. You became a man who was incapable of saying no, of walking away, of withholding himself. And she sensed that. Deep down, she knew there was no consequence for disrespecting you. You would always stay. That is not strength. That is submission. And women don't crave submission. They crave power they can't fully access. They crave the man who has the self-respect to walk away if he's not met with desire. They crave the man who doesn't chase validation because he already validates himself. You became loyal, not from abundance, but from fear. You feared losing her. You feared being alone. You feared being misunderstood. So you made yourself small, predictable, present. But presence without mystery is just routine. And routine is the death of eroticism. Loyalty without boundaries, without self-possession, without silence, is not masculine. It's desperate. You were trying to buy love with obedience. But love isn't sold. It's earned through contrast, risk, polarity. You removed every shadow from your heart so she could feel safe. But she wasn't looking for safety. She was looking for wonder. And you stopped being wonderful the moment you stopped being unknown. The first rule is this: if she knows everything you'll say, everything you'll do, everything you'll feel, she may respect you, but she will not want you. Because love cannot grow in the soil of certainty. Only control can. You tried to make her feel secure. But in doing so, you made yourself common. And nothing common is ever craved. You thought intimacy meant full exposure. You thought that if you told her everything, your childhood wounds, your past relationships, your fears, your doubts, she would love you more. But here's the third truth. She doesn't want to know all of you. She wants to wonder who you are. You mistook vulnerability for seduction. You mistook openness for allure. But when you turned your soul inside out and laid it bare, you didn't become more desirable. You became explainable. And no one is drawn to what they can explain. Nietzsche said, "Whatever is done for love always occurs beyond good and evil." Love doesn't follow moral instruction. It follows instinct. And instinct is drawn to the unknown, to the hidden, to the unreachable corner of you that even she can't name. The modern man is trained to share his feelings, to be emotionally available, to let her in. And yes, there's a time for that, but not all the time. Not when it's constant, not when it replaces mystery with maintenance. Because mystery is not a game. It's a necessity. Do you know why she's obsessed with fictional characters? Dead poets or the man who barely spoke at that party? It's because they withhold. They don't serve their emotions on a platter. They offer glimpses, never the whole. You gave her the whole. You gave her full access to the internal landscape of your being. You thought this would deepen her love, but what it did was flatten her desire. Because when she's seen it all, when she's heard every confession, when she can predict every reaction, she no longer feels. Desire requires distance. It requires silence. It requires restraint. Carl Jung called it the unapologetic, the unconscious feminine principle that seeks to penetrate the depths of a man's soul, not to fix him, but to encounter the divine unknown within him. But you replaced the divine unknown with emotional monologues. You gave her your trauma. You gave her your pain. You gave her your sacred chaos without ever asking, does she even deserve to hold it? And in doing so, you inverted the polarity. You made her the container. You made yourself the overflow. But a woman doesn't crave to be the container. She wants to melt into yours. When you speak every thought, every fear, every emotion, you become emotionally leaky. And leaking is not masculine. Leaking is fragile. You believe you're bonding, but she feels burdened. She can't tell you why. She may even say, "I love that you're so open," but her body knows. Her nervous system knows. Her attraction fades quietly, slowly, inevitably. And you are left confused. How could she leave after everything I shared? Because sharing everything is not intimacy. It's emotional self-sabotage. You killed the flame by removing the shadows. You want her to love the real you. then make sure the real you has depth, not just depth in feeling, but depth in silence, in presence, in power withheld. Don't offer your whole story. Offer a chapter. Don't explain every emotion. Let her feel it without words. Don't confess every weakness. Confront it privately with honor. She doesn't need to know all of you. She needs to feel that there's still something in you. She will never touch a place she can sense, but never enter. That's not cruelty. That's seduction. That's what keeps her coming back. That's what makes her stare at you when you aren't looking, trying to solve a puzzle she can't even name. You want her to crave you. Then don't become a confession booth. Become a cathedral, silent, vast, sacred, and always slightly out of reach. That is how mystery becomes the magnet. That is how you reclaim polarity. That is how you stop being explained and start being felt. You want to be her answer. You want to be the man who solves her confusion, comforts her fears, gives her certainty. You want to be the provider, the protector, the one who says, I will never leave. And she'll thank you for it, but she won't desire you for it. Because desire doesn't live in answers. It lives in questions. The final rule is this: if she can define you, she will stop craving you. If she has you figured out, she'll start looking elsewhere, not physically perhaps, but energetically. It is not cruelty, it is nature. Even the most devoted woman is attracted not to the man she fully understands, but to the man who holds something beyond her comprehension. The modern man has been trained to eliminate all uncertainty. He thinks love is won through constant affirmation. I'm here, I'm loyal, I'll never leave. But what he doesn't understand is this: every time you remove the unknown, you remove the very thing her feminine essence longs for. It's not about being cruel, it's about being unknowable. Because what is unknowable is unforgettable. Nietzsche once wrote, "A thinker sees his own actions as experiments and questions as attempts to find out something." That's what you must become, not a conclusion, not a summary, not a moral lesson, but an experiment. A question she cannot stop asking. When you become a fixed figure, defined, decoded, domesticated, you lose the tension that once made her heart beat faster when she thought of you. You must stop being her comfort blanket. You must become her edge. She doesn't want you to be the man who fits neatly into her expectations. She wants to wonder, what is he thinking? What is he planning? Is he fully mine? Or is some part of him still wild? That wondering is the fuel of feminine attraction. And when you kill it with explanations, over-communication, emotional transparency, you suffocate the fire. You might say, but I want her to feel safe. Yes, be safe, but never be simple. A man can be grounded without being boring. A man can be stable without being exposed. If you want to be truly magnetic, you must be a paradox, silent yet expressive, present yet elusive, warm but untouchable, and above all, unresolved. Leave parts of yourself unexplained. Leave space between your words. Don't always pick up the phone. Don't always say, I love you first. Don't always be available to be needed. Not because you're playing games, but because your life is too full, too sacred, too powerful to revolve around another's validation. She does not want your emotional obedience. She wants your emotional gravity. Gravity is silent. It doesn't chase. It simply pulls. You want her to lean in. Then don't hand her everything. Make her reach. Make her feel the space between you as something holy, not threatening. This is why she dreams about men who didn't text back. Why she fantasizes about the stranger she spoke to for only 3 minutes. Why the artist who never said her name still haunts her. It's because they were never fully answered. They left questions, and questions are where imagination lives. And wherever imagination lives, desire blooms. Don't be the man who gives her peace through predictability. Be the man who gives her ecstasy through tension. Don't be the man who says, this is who I am. Be the man who says nothing and lets her discover pieces of you she can never name. Because when a woman is still discovering you, she is still desiring you. And when she thinks she knows you, it's over. Not because she's heartless, but because you left nothing for her soul to chase. be a question, not an answer. You want to believe love is enough. That if you love her purely, loyally, endlessly, she will stay. She will reciprocate. She will admire the man who gave her his heart without hesitation. But Nietzsche offers no such comfort. He doesn't feed you lies to help you sleep. He gives you truth, cold, sharp, merciless. Not to wound you, but to wake you. He wrote, "He who fights with monsters must take care lest he thereby become a monster." And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. Here is the abyss. You gave her everything, and she still left. You offered devotion, and she drifted. You built your identity around being the good man, and that was the very thing that made you invisible. Because women do not crave goodness, they crave aliveness. They want to feel something. Mystery, tension, power. And Nietzsche understood most men are rejected not for being bad, but for being predictable. She left you not because you lacked love, but because you lacked polarity. You didn't challenge her emotionally. You didn't unsettle her assumptions. You didn't awaken her chaos by grounding your own. Instead, you tried to be agreeable, safe, soft. And so she folded you up and placed you in a box marked security. Then she walked away to search for fire. You call it betrayal. But it was simply inevitability. Because love that is not earned daily with tension and polarity dies. And you were too available to be magnetic. Nietzsche's truth is not for the faint-hearted. He does not whisper affirmations. He rips illusions from your soul like thorns from flesh. But in doing so, he offers something better than comfort. He offers clarity. Clarity that frees you from being the man who believes that love is maintained by sacrifice, apology, and constant reassurance. You see, you didn't lose her. You surrendered yourself to her, and she didn't want that. She wanted a man, not a mirror reflecting her desires, not a servant anticipating her needs. She wanted a sovereign force, a man who remains mysterious even in intimacy, a man who is warm but untouchable, present but unpossessable. And Nietzsche reminds us the price of freedom is isolation. The price of being unforgettable is being misunderstood. The moment you prioritize being loved over being respected, you've already lost both. You must be willing to walk away, not out of anger, but out of principle. Because she must feel that if she stops showing up with devotion, she will lose you. Not through rage, but through absence. Cold, silent, final. This is the cruelty of truth. You do not keep a woman's soul with love alone. You keep it with depth, with uncertainty, with the subtle fear that she might lose you if she stops trying. You may hate this. You may call it manipulation. But this isn't a game. It's nature. And if you fight nature with morality, you will lose every time. Because while you are offering loyalty, she is listening to something deeper than logic. She is listening to her nervous system, and it responds to danger, not devotion. Not danger as in harm, but danger as in mystery. As in, I don't fully understand this man, and that excites me. You were never meant to be her pet. You were meant to be her paradox. So ask yourself, do you want to be understood, or do you want to be desired? Do you want to be safe? Or do you want to be remembered? Because if you want her soul, you must let go of your need to be soft, submissive, and transparent. You must let her wonder who you are, even when she lies next to you in the dark. That is the cruelty of Nietzsche's mercy. He won't promise you happiness, but he will promise you power if you're willing to let go of the illusion that love is owed to you for good behavior. It's not. It's earned through mystery, through discipline, through restraint. And if that truth hurts, then let it hurt. Because pain is the birthplace of clarity. So now you see it. Everything you were told about love was designed to keep you harmless. They told you to be gentle, available, vulnerable, endlessly giving. And when it didn't work, when she drifted, ghosted, or turned cold, they told you to try harder. But the truth is brutal. The more you gave, the less she felt. The more you explained, the less she listened. The more you loved, the less she respected you. Because women are not drawn to men who hand over their soul too quickly. They're drawn to men who guard it like something sacred. And if you want to be loved for who you truly are, then you better make sure who you are is worth the mystery. That doesn't mean you become cold or cruel, but it does mean you become whole. A man who stands alone, not needing to be wanted, not needing to be understood, and certainly not needing to be kept. This is the end of the illusion. You cannot love your way into being respected. You cannot explain your way into being desired. And you cannot beg your way into being remembered. You either become a mystery or you become forgotten. Nietzsche didn't teach love as salvation. He taught love as a test, a forge, a place where your illusions go to die so your masculinity can be reborn. And if you still think that giving more of yourself will make her stay, then you are not ready to be a man. You are still a boy playing by the rules of comfort, expecting reward for obedience, pining for approval like a dog waiting for a treat. A real man walks away when he is no longer chosen. Not because he wants revenge, but because he refuses to remain where his soul is no longer met. He walks into the unknown, into his solitude, into his sovereignty. And in that space, he becomes dangerous. Because a man who can be alone, a man who doesn't need her validation, a man who holds his silence like a sword, is untouchable. That's the man she craves. That's the man she fears losing. That's the man she cannot fully possess, and precisely why she can never forget him. So here is the choice: walk alone, or die slowly in the illusion that being soft, predictable, and devoted will make her stay. One path is painful, yes, but it is clean. The other is slow death, the erosion of your essence, the humiliation of being overlooked, the agony of watching her eyes lose their fire when they look at you. Choose, not with emotion, with truth, because she already has enough men trying to be her answer. Be her question. Be the shadow she can't explain. Be the presence that makes her spine tingle because she knows you could vanish at any moment. And yet somehow you stay, not out of need, not out of weakness, but out of will. And if one day she stops seeing your value, you walk, silent, unapologetic, gone. That is how respect is born. That is how desire is kept. That is how a man reclaims himself. So I will leave you with this, not as advice, but as a warning. If you do not become the mystery, you will become the memory. And no woman craves a memory.